Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Slow to Speak podcast. This is the place where myself and others like me explore ideas around culture, current events, spirituality, and philosophy. This is the digital fireside chat where you are invited to pull up a chair and join us in the simple joy that comes from a curious and engaging dialogue about the things that shape and affect our lives. Have we become any wiser? This is a question that struck me when I was reading Stephen Garber's Visions of Vocation this past month. The question is situated in a chapter discussing the landscape of our lives. As you consider the landscape of our lives, meaning all of us humans here in our context in 2025, with the whole of human history behind us, what is true of us today? Let me speak specifically to who I think is listening to this. To you. If you're listening to this, you're likely someone who lives in what is widely considered something called Western culture. This means that you're likely exposed to the things that I'm exposed to. So let's consider the landscape of our lives together. We live in a world of incredible technologies. We live in an age of rapid travel by things like car or airplane or my personal favorite, train. We have life-saving medical interventions. We have access to more education than ever before. The material wealth of many in our country, while still feeling tensions with cost of living today, is like that of ancient royalty. We have access to endless information. YouTube University and now ChatGPT teaching us how to repair our homes, prepare for job interviews, or understand how things like cellular metabolism works. As a human species, we are more advanced than we have ever been before. And it is here that the question is asked, but have we become any wiser? This question is astutely asked by James Billington, the Librarian of Congress, who works with one of the largest storehouses of information on the planet. He refers to our contemporary world as an info-glut culture. We have an overabundant supply of information at our fingertips. Having access to so much information should make us smarter, right? Access should make us more responsible, more aware, more prudent, more able to learn from mistakes, more able to help people in need. And yet our society has never been more unhappy. Even as I say this, you intuitively know it to be true. As Garber says in response to this question of if we've become any wiser, the words echo across the landscape of our time. So let's pull the layers back on this and get a little bit uncomfortable. Are we any wiser? Author Neil Postman has spoken to this issue when he wrote Amusing Ourselves to Death, Public Discourse in the Age of Show Business. He references two seminal works that have acted as haunting prophets for the future, Brave New World by Aldous Huxley and 1984 by George Orwell. Garber summarizes Postman's work by saying, Orwell feared we would become a captive culture. Huxley feared that we would become a trivial culture. Orwell feared that what we hate will ruin us. Huxley feared that what we love will ruin us. Huxley teaches that in the age of advanced technology, spiritual devastation is more likely to come from an enemy with a smiling face than from one whose countenance exudes suspicion and hate. While Huxley and Orwell appear to have different fears, they share the same conclusion of what could happen to humanity. We are likely to be the agents of our own ruin, either by what we hate or by what we love. In 2002, Thomas de Zangatita penned the article, The Numbing of the American Mind, in which he also saw this coming, and it would at least appear that he would align more closely with Huxley. Zangatita saw culture as an anesthetic. He believed that we become numb due to our overstimulation by all the messaging that we're exposed to every day. So much so that we can hardly distinguish between what is reality and what is fabrication anymore. He views this numbness as our soul's way of coping with this flood of information and things asking us to feel something towards all of it. He states this: "It's not surprising that you have learned to move on so readily to the next, sometimes moving moment. It's sink or surf. Spiritual numbness guarantees that your relations with the moving will pass." In other words, spiritual numbness guarantees that your relations with information will pass. American social psychologist Kenneth Gergen would agree. He states, "The fully saturated self becomes no self at all." In the Bampton Lectures at Cambridge University, Colin Gunton makes the case that disengagement has become the medium of contemporary life. That when we look out into the world, we really do want to understand and respond to it, but we just don't know how to do that in a meaningful way. As Garber says, for sociological reasons, for philosophical reasons, we see the immensity and the complexity, and we step back. We disengage, hoping to hold on to ourselves, to that which matters most to us, trying to protect ourselves from being overcome and overwhelmed. This disengagement, this numbing, this anesthetizing of our minds has changed the way we think, how our brains literally process and engage with information, and has led us to what writer Nicholas Carr refers to as the shallows. Okay, let's take a moment. That was a lot. How do you feel about all of that? And did you see what just happened? Let me name an irony at this point in the podcast. I realize that with this pod, I'm only adding even more information out there for you to encounter and process. I feel the irony, and I feel a sense of hopelessness within that. How can we help people with the numbing of information if all we're doing is adding more information to the mix? Put another way, when we're already saturated with so much information, how could anyone hope to communicate in a meaningful way? So I want to return to the question. As we look at the landscape of our lives, have we become any wiser? I think this is what we're trying to do and what we're trying to get at here at Slow to Speak. That we can slow down enough to give ourselves time to feel and think about what's forming and shaping our lives. Create an environment where we can think about our thoughts. Examine ourselves for the sake of breaking the pattern of focusing so much on the critique and evaluation of others' lives rather than our own. Have we become any wiser is a haunting question. It asks us to stare into the mirror ourselves and as a community at large and to be honest. How would you answer the question? Have we become any wiser? What does it mean to be wise? What is wise living? If we were to say, yes, we are wiser, what would that even look like? If we would say, no, we aren't wise, well, what would it look like to become wise? What would an actual society of people look like that was living wisely? When we look to answer this question, I think it has to start with ourselves before we start telling others what to do, lest we become a hypocrite and not do the very things that we expect others to do. I think this is also at the heart of why the Latin maxim audi alterum partum is sort of the theme of Slow to Speak. How could I possibly hope to understand what wise living is if I'm not willing to listen to the other side and engage in genuine dialogue? If there's anything that growing into adulthood has taught me is that I don't know all of the information and I don't have all of the facts. Discussing and having genuine dialogue with people, asking really good questions of other people, helps me learn so much from those around me. And I think there's a real beauty in that. I think that's how, when you look at the advancements in things like technology that I mentioned earlier, I think that has all come about and become so spread across the globe because people are willing to engage with one another and share ideas. And so I do want to explore this more. Maybe it will become the theme of what a season 2 is all about here at Slow to Speak. Exploring and mining the question, how do we become wise? What does it look like to live wisely individually, but also as a community? Another theme that Stephen Garber explores to great depth in his Visions of Vocation is how do we become implicated in the stories of our community and the lives of those around us? Not in a negative way, but how do we come to be somebody who takes responsibility for ourselves, our families, our relationships, our communities, our city? How do we become the kind of people that want to see things be better and take responsibility and see progress actually come about? If you've made it this far and you've been listening, I just want to say thank you for being here. I want to personally invite you to contribute to exploring and answering this question as we move forward. Have we become any wiser? I'm going to be making a push to be using Substack a little bit more intentionally with giving people an opportunity to engage with one another. So I want to invite you, if you haven't already, subscribe to the Slow to Speak Substack. It is entirely free, and it's a place where we can engage in these ideas together. So with that, we'll see you over there, and I look forward to exploring this question more. That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us for this installment of Slow to Speak. I'm so happy you chose to share this time with us, and I hope you learned something. The whole reason the show exists is to learn by sounding out the ideas and the stories that shape and affect our lives. If you enjoyed this episode or you were impacted by it, would you consider sharing this with your friends or family and maybe leaving a review of the show? I'd also love to hear from you. If you have any questions or comments, or even any ideas, things that you'd like to see discussed on the show, you can let me know by emailing slowtospeak@gmail.com. And don't forget the E on the end. Audi alterum partum, everyone. We'll see you next time.